involved through the chairpersonship of Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. Having said that, for Liberia's own case, at the National Statistical Office, we have an SDG focal point who collect data from line ministries and agencies. But most of the issues that we have in Liberia is not only unique to Liberia, like my colleague just mentioned from Ghana. At the household level, collecting information to feed into the indicators that are drafted or geared towards monitoring the SDG is not a difficult thing. But at some point in time, at businesses, sometimes the response rate for business surveys are sometimes challenging, most often. And we understand, but also research institutions, academia, universities, they should make information available so that the SDGs, House, and other key stakeholders, CSOs, at the data collection point in collecting the information, there is also a problem or an issue of collaboration. Some of the entities want to feels like they should be the hub to provide certain information, and by law, the National Statistical Office is the prime entity for data collection and also dissemination. But at the level of the SDG, there are still some issues, but we are trying to use our persuasive method at the Statistics House to make sure that we bring all stakeholders together in monitoring the SDG at the country level. Considering major challenges that are within the framework of the SDGs, I will not restate what my colleague John has mentioned from GSS, but I will just go further to add on some of the issues that we have. For example, in Africa, in Liberia in particular, we, as Statistics House, we are good at collecting data. But there's this issue of dissemination. Even though we have a policy on dissemination, but most of the policies are not followed carefully, judiciously, to make sure, like I heard one speaker said this morning, if you are watching a soccer match and your team score, or even your opponent team score, right away you should have the goal flag up on the scoreboard. So we as statisticians in our respective countries, it is our duty, it's mandatory upon us that whenever we have information being collected and is being released, we should make it readily available. One, through the internet system or through the email sharing system. Like for us in Liberia, excluding the SDG, I'm the head of price statistics. On a monthly basis, we produce price indexes and inflation. And so with that, the second Wednesday of the preceding month, they are produced and given to people that are attending, and is also placed on our website. And so, Madam Moderator, what I do see with some of the issues within our sub-region or within Africa is to make sure that we do not collect information and just keep it on the shelf. The dust will mal around them. When we collect, it's good to have it open so that policymakers and decision makers can use it for evidence-based decision making. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's give him a round of applause. Now, I'm going to turn the mic over to the audience. Can I have one of these young volunteers, okay? Right. So we give the mic. Please give us your name, right, and your institution.
Yes. My name's Dorothy Gordon. I wear a lot of hats, but for this session, it's my position as the chair of the UNESCO Working Group on Information Literacy, which I want to focus more on data literacy that I'm attending this particular session. Dr. Misra, thank you for your intervention. You didn't talk enough, I think, about the challenges. What kind of pushback did you get when you went for open by default? How did the government data providers take it? What kind of preparation did you have to do? You mentioned the license system. So India has developed a specific license, but that means that some of the challenges that my brother from Ghana and also Liberia were mentioning about academia not giving back data. for me, it's a question of how the data that they accessed was licensed. Because according to what you said, if you take from the Government of India Open Data Platform to do your research, you will be obliged to make that research open. No?
Source of data you
Wait. When I finish all the questions, because I am on the Advisory Council for Creative Commons. And if you look at the Creative Commons license, if you use a product licensed under Creative Commons, you cannot take it out of the commons. You have to keep it in the commons. So I want us to be thinking about that kind of licensing, because for me, it makes no sense to give open data for somebody to close it off later. So just be thinking about that and what kind of views. Then access. You put government information out in formats that require them to go for proprietary solutions that will cost them money. This can't be. I'm an advocate of open source, so I like to hear for Voto Mobile. So there's a lot going on now using mobile phones to collect data. And that's where the ethical issues come in, because anybody can pay the platform to conduct the survey. And then we as African countries, we don't actually know what kind of research is being published about us. There are a lot of issues around that. So I think I've given you enough food for thought. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Now, what I want us to do, let me take like 2 more, because the speakers have taken note. Let me take like 2 or 3 more, so that once we go around, then yes. Okay.
Okay, thank you. In the discussion so far, even going back to earlier sessions I've been attending, I just realized now that governments are investing a lot in this platform we're talking about, open data. Is there any consideration or thought about even generating revenue from this platform for the government? There's a possibility there. There's an opportunity there. Oh, my name? My name is Tade Rogers, and I'm a data practitioner, I have to say. So I'm one of the people that make these things happen once you have visions, this kind of visions. So I'm a practitioner. I work as a data engineer. Excuse me?
Which country?
Well, in the US, largely. But I do consulting work here now. So anyway, so I'm just thinking governments can leverage this asset into revenue as well. Is there any thought being given to that?
Okay, so any more questions from the audience? Okay, we take from my colleague there.
Hi, it's Paul from Open Up in South Africa. I'd like to go back to another of the SDG principles, and that's around indivisibility. I'd like to understand, I suppose, maybe take a mature platform like the India case, to what extent you've looked at a relationship between data sets, so healthcare and water provision.
On to the panelists. One more. Okay. Sure.
One of the things that we've observed in Africa is we're not getting that ecosystem of entrepreneurs that are actually using data sets to drive their business. So I had wanted to ask our colleague from India if government of India is monitoring how many new businesses are coming up as a result of the opening of the data, and what difference it's making overall to GDP. Are we seeing that that business is actually creating wealth for the country? Because our concern is we are opening the data, it may be creating wealth for somebody outside of the continent, and we want it to grow business within the continent.
Okay, I think we'll ask our panelists to respond, but I'll just mention two issues that maybe, one is that open data is not as open, okay? So it's not all data that is made open. There are laws governing that. And ethics has implications for intellectual property rights, the issue of academia. So let me turn the mic over to Dr. Misra.
Yeah, thank you, madam. I'll address this first question. What do you say regarding ethics, and you should not disclose the private person's entity details? So, in India, the National Data Sharing and Accessibility Policy, that policy mentions that no individual data is to be published in public. Though there is no privacy act or something in place currently in India, but that policy mentions that no individual, that is personal identifiable information, should not be made public. So in that case, any data going out to open data platform, no private data is going into the system. So anybody can access, they can only get the anonymized data, and particularly the statistical department, what they release this unit level data, they don't make it public with the personal details. That is one thing I want to mention. And as far as this business is concerned, currently we have, there is no monitoring as such as of now, how many business has come up on public open data or something. But now we have engaged Institute of Financial Management and Research, IFMR, to make a study and give us a report. What is the economic and social impact, and how it is growing in India, and how is the current status of India as of now. So that recently this study is to start. So maybe another 6 months or 1 year down the line, this might come out. So I forgot another question that you. Come again?
How about the license?
Yeah, license. Yeah. See, this license, it says that you need to give the source from where you took the data. Okay. After that, if they mention that this data, anyway, it automatically binds them to share that what they are doing onto that. After this licensing thing, we have in that portal itself embedded one aspect. If you are downloading a particular data, or if you are taking a particular data set, then it is not mandatory, but you have to mention. It is a sort of mandatory. Before downloading, it prompts a small form that who are you and for what purpose you are taking the data for you.
What call us if you combine data sets?
Yeah, see.
You come out with something original. You don't have to share that.
No, that is not. See, then another thing what my colleague from South Africa, he said, see, what ministries are doing, they are releasing data in APIs. So they release the APIs, it comes to the open data portal. If you try to download, you will get, there are 5 formats that we defined in our guideline: CSV, Excel, and CSV, XLS, XML, JSON, and for ODT, that is open data format. So these are the 5 formats. So if you have one format, the platform gives a capability to convert it to other formats. So that is a particular data set. But what internally it does, we take this data into a repository and it's a data mining kind of thing. We are putting it to India. NoSQL database. So that is Elastic. We use Elastic as the backend. So the data, all this data goes to a Elastic engine. So from there, if you want to mess up any of these kind of data, maybe health data with education data, if you want to search, you can get these two data sets directly through one API, then you do whatever you want to analyze. So that way, data is shared through APIs from data.gov. It is not only to download, you can download, but if you can still get through APIs. You, as an individual or as an entity, you can apply for an API key. You will be assigned an API key. Using that API key, you can access the data. These are all automatic. There is no manual intervention into it as such. And in India, if you may be aware that currently it is the Digital India program is going on. So recently, yesterday only, I saw a tweet from my minister that India is expecting a $1.8 trillion digital economy in next 5 years. So you may be aware that demonetization was done during last November. So we are promoting digital economy and digital transactions instead of cash transactions to make more transparency and accountability in transaction level. So this is how it's going currently. So the digital economy and digital practice is the key theme of the government currently. Anything I missed out from?
Okay, I think there was this issue of whether there is evidence in terms of the link between data usage and empowerment, whether you have success stories of people who maybe have grown more businesses as a result of the fact that...
Yeah, that study is going on. That study you have started.
That study is going on now.
Yeah, currently it is under
Okay, I
progress.
just wanted to say it will take some time.
Another thing I want to mention, in Digital India, there are 9 pillars where they have identified. There are different 9 pillars, 9 areas, starting from the fiber optical backbone to the application level services. So in the pillar 6, information to all is a category, where this open data, then citizen engagement platform is also is a big hit in India. There is mygov.in that we do in India. So there people can come and intervene the public policy decision making, and they suggest to government what is to done or what is not to done, so that kind of thing.
Okay, so let me move to Eden to respond.
Thank you. How much does it cost to do our citizen-led assessment? A lot of money. When I looked at the budget in 2015, which was the one we did the largest, 3 countries, 427 districts, 500,000 children, it cost us somewhere between $6 and $7 million to do. It was expensive. So that's why, I called data crude oil up here. It's expensive to dig out the stuff. So we're trying to make sure it's used, either. So 2015, what I'm excited about is the fact that we collected so much data in 2015. 2015 is the year we signed the SDGs. So we have a baseline. The government don't need to do a baseline anymore across a whole range of household level data, right? So from there, we can begin doing smaller surveys, but we have a baseline against which to measure progress. And we're working, partly the Aga Khan University has already looked at used some of our data to look at spatial inequalities. They can tell in Tanzania which regions on which indicator are closest to the SDG goals and which ones are furthest behind. And the beautiful thing about that is that you go to a government and you say, you're going to put more effort in this region, less effort in this region. You could put more effort in this SDG, less effort in this SDG. So it makes the granularity is so valuable. And getting granular data ain't cheap. So it cost us quite a bit of money. Women volunteers, luckily I have my staff on tap here on Skype, so I asked them. And 2015, we had 40% of our enumeration staff being women. 40% were volunteers. A large number of them are young, between the ages of 20 and 30. So the balance, we're getting towards a 50-50 balance in there. Data quality, yes, that has been an issue in the past. When we collect the questionnaires that come, the booklets that come, and the data, we used to send actually our data, all the books, imagine this, to India for input up until 2013. So 2014 and 2015 and onwards, that data has been input in East Africa, mostly in Nairobi. But we check and recheck and clean. We then go back and do LQS. You guys are the statisticians. I don't know what LQS stands for, but essentially we pick random districts and we send out a different set of enumerators to ask the households, did somebody come? Did they ask you questions, etc.? So we make sure that the enumerators are not sitting under a tree somewhere and filling in the, the data. We actually randomize the check, the verification of the data collection. Ethical issues, a very important point you raise about collecting data. For us, we are Africans collecting data from Africans. So at least that one ticks that particular box. You're not convinced. But here's another one. The other one is that one can be very extractive about data collection, right? We go into the households and you just suck the numbers out of them. And then you say, bye, see you next year. We make a deliberate effort. The other reason why we're expensive, we make a deliberate effort to go back to the households or to give back to those households what we find as information, for example, about their own children's learning outcomes. Once they have been assessed, the volunteer stays and goes to the guardian and says, your child passes at this level, not at that level, etc. So there's an instant feedback. But we also go back to the districts and the communities with their ranking or their position when compared with other parts of the country, so that they get back from Twaweza the results of the data collection exercise. And this is one thing that we're going to continue and emphasize going forward with the SDG monitoring. The last one I wanted to maybe to comment on is open data growing entrepreneurs on the continent. My view, I think the infrastructure is growing all sorts of entrepreneurs. In Tanzania, for example, which is a huge base of has a huge base of Instagram subscribers, young men and women are doing a lot of business on Instagram. But I don't know who, apart from Facebook, is collecting that data. Who Facebook probably knows what products they're selling, what prices they're selling at, etc. But I don't see anybody in Tanzania looking at that, doing that research. So I actually would like to commission somebody to look at that and see how much is the infrastructure for generating data actually itself a means of generating business. Your Instagrams, your WhatsApp, and combined with the mobile money, which is everywhere in East Africa, it's very, very, very easy to set up a shopfront online and make money for almost zero capital cost. So that might be happening. But the data itself being open and being insightful enough for somebody to use, I think the very smart mobile phone companies, the very smart banks, and the very smart other financial services providers are using their own data to refine their business offerings to people, but they haven't seen. I'm not sure that it is yet, perhaps later.
All right, thank you. The issue about data literacy, I think it's a challenge. We have done quite a lot in that field. We've tried to build the capacity of a number of MDAs, and we've gone to the district assemblies. We even provide them with analytical tools. But as you rightly asked, what about the business community? Are they using our data to enhance their business operation? From the few analyses we've done, no. Those who require our data are academia, and a lot of them from outside the jurisdiction of Ghana. And so it requires a collaborative effort of all of us to create that statistical awareness, and allow people, tell them to use data in their planning and business activities. For ethical reasons, yes, I mean, we are known of our strict adherence to ethics. The law that set us up mandates that we keep to confidentiality, we respect the privacy of our data providers, and so we have a certain level of data that we can give out. We try to anonymize our data, and there's no way you can use our data to trace any provider, And probably, and I will still want to beg my Madam Moderator and want to re-emphasize again that we all want quality data. We want data to be open so it can be used and reused. But all of us are the providers of the data. We should make that conscious effort and respond to our survey questions when our enumerators come. And again, let us all try in our little way to contribute to the provision of data that we require. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me move to our colleague from Liberia.
Okay. Thank you very much. My take on quickly on the issues that have been under deliberation is that, one, the issue of technical issue or ethical issues. In Liberia, by law, legislatures should guide the process. When I say legislature, I mean the statistical house in Liberia should guide the technical issues regarding data collection in the country, even if we are not the one to collect that particular information. But generally in Liberia, I want to be specific, we have good laws on the book, but the issue of implementation is another thing. For example, like what the UNESCO did mention, if, for instance, the statistical agencies or offices in Africa are involved within the technical issues with data collection, I do not think the end result should be hidden. They should be shared. Like we said, most of the NGOs or university or research institutions in Liberia go about to collect information without the consultation of the statistical agency. Even at that, when those informations are collected, when you get to them, oh, can we have the end result? Most times, it's a challenge. It's a huge challenge. Again, on the issue of data quality, for us, I think the digital age is taking care of that, because all smartphones has what we call the GPS. And so if you tell an individual, say, go to community X, household 2, that particular community X, household 2 GPS coordinate should be taken. It must be taken. And so at the statistical agency, we know exactly where that is. But with giving the data out, we remove that. We remove the identifiers. We give the aggregate, except where you want it at county level, because for us in Liberia, we have the country, the county, the district, the clan, and then the communities. So once you want that, it's given. But the issue of data quality is very key. And like what John said, most of the data we collect from people. And we, as statistical agency, we cannot really force people to say what you are saying is it true. But some of the checks we put into place, for example, using the gadgets or the PDA or smartphone, what we do, there are checks in place. For example, if you have a question, the preceding question is linking to that question. If there's anything out of the range, of course, it flags out. And so with that, you can have a better quality. And like I said, we take GPS coordinates and all of that. Quickly commenting on what my colleague mentioned from South Africa, the issue of relationship. In Liberia, we have what we call the NSDS. And the NSDS gives the way for all line ministries and agencies to have a harmonized form of data. For example, at the Ministry of Education, we go for that. At the Ministry of Health, we go for that, the transport, and all sectors across Liberia. The statistical house is a hub for dissemination, it's a hub for data collection, but again, there are still issues there. So going further, I think we need to further enhance the collaboration so that data providers can more or less be together so that the end users will have the data at their advantage for decision making. Thank you.
Okay, now we've come to the end of this panel, but I'd just like to comment a little bit on accessing academia, academic data. Now, academic data is normally found in research reports, in publications. They are either published or unpublished sources. And for published sources, these are the ones that could have been peer-reviewed, made available through maybe a kind of journals or textbooks, which could be available for sale. So it means that we need to look into that kind of relationship, especially when we look at Africa, where we have problems in terms of having hard copies. How do we deal with that? With all of these international companies that have these e-books and all of this. So we need to think about that also. And then for unpublished sources, most of the information that academics produce sometimes is for organizations, sometimes it's for small-scale research. But normally, academics are not very comfortable in putting out data that has not been well peer-reviewed. So I think we need to look squarely around those issues. But finally, I would say, I think bringing home academic libraries would be one way of looking at some of these problems. Because through the libraries, you have dissertations, you have theses, you have quite a lot of stuff that open data needs. So much is in academia that needs to change the face of open data access that is actually not being explored. So on that note, I think we should now be thinking about universities, research, innovation, and open data. How do we bring that community to bear on what we are talking about for successfully achieving the MDGs? So let us thank our panel. Let us clap for ourselves, and thank you very much. Now, just a little announcement. We have been asked to move outside for a group photograph, which takes place now. And then after the group photograph, we retire for lunch.